Okay. All right. So this is the figurative language practice part 2. And this is really just to serve as a way for you to double check your work, make sure you understand why things are the way that they are, and to just make sure you're prepared because you have a quiz on this material. So you should be done through through text example 6. So let's start with 7. All right. Again, you are identifying the type of figurative language that is used. All of your choices are going to be either a hyperbole, an allusion, personification, simile, or alliteration. Those are the 5 terms that we're focusing on, okay? And those terms are one of the first slides. You can go back and reference if you need to. I've also given you the hints of the italicized text to help you focus in on the example to help you decide which type of figurative language it is. So number 7, the text example says, Jim stopped inside the door as immovable as a setter at the scent of a quail. So our first, there's 2 different ones here. Number 7 is a little tricky. There's 2 different types of figurative language used. So the first one is italicized. So stopped, setter, scent. And just so you know, a setter is a type of a dog. It's usually called an Irish setter, and it's a hunting dog. So that's what they're talking about here. So stopped, setter, scent. Those are repetitions of initial consonant sounds. So that one is alliteration. And I'm just putting a number 1 so you can see it a little clearer. Okay. The second one is a comparison, and it's underlined, and it says Jim stopped inside the door as immovable as a setter at the scent of a quail. So it's comparing 2 things, Jim stopping, to the way that an Irish setter or a hunting dog would stop and point to the scent of a quail that he was hunting, okay? So both of these things are things that stop, and they're comparing 2 different things using like or as, so that is a simile. So the justification for the first one is, this is alliteration, because, again, you should have complete sentences for all of these. All of these should start the same pattern, because the initial S sound is repeated. And we can even add that. Stopped, setter, scent. So that is your justification. Okay, we know it's alliteration because we know that that sound is being repeated. The second justification is the explanation of simile. So this is an example of simile because, again, that format, because the author is comparing Jim stopping inside the doorway to the way a hunting dog stops when they find their prey. Okay, so it's comparing 2 different things. Because it used like or as, it's simile. So pause that, get that down, double check it, correct your papers if you need to, and then let's move on to number 8. The text says, and then Della leaped up like a singed cat and cried, oh, oh. The type of figurative language here, we need to look at the italicized font. So it says leaped up like a singed cat and cried. So because we're talking about Della being compared to a cat here, right? The way she jumped up was cat-like, like a little cat who was being burned, is a comparison, and it uses as, or like, in this case, like, sorry, that is a simile. So now we need to say that down here. The author is comparing her jumping up to the way a cat would jump up as if it was being burned, okay? So this is an example of a simile because the author is comparing Della jumping up to the way a cat would jump up quickly if startled or hurt. And it uses like in the comparison. So that's how we know that it is a simile. Okay. And I apologize too. My talking and typing simultaneously is not a very skillful articulation. So go ahead and pause that. Make sure you got that down. Fix your paper. Do what you need to do. And let's move on to number 9. The text says, the Magi, as you know, were wise men, wonderfully wise men who brought gifts to the babe in the manger. Okay. So if you go back to your story, it explains in a footnote who the Magi are, okay? And then in the end, in the closing of your story, it even goes back to tell you who these Magi are, okay? The Magi are also known as the 3 wise men. They're from the Bible. They're referenced in the Bible as the 3 men who brought gifts to the babe in the manger, being Jesus. Okay, so this whole thing is referencing people in the Bible, and anything that is referenced that is popular knowledge is considered an allusion. Okay, our title is an allusion to the 3 wise men from the Bible. The Magi were the people who brought gifts, and our whole story is about sacrificing the things you love to give the gift that someone else would love, right? Both Della and Jim sacrificed their most prized possessions in order to be able to buy a prized possession for somebody that they loved. The Magi in the Bible sacrificed lots of things to travel very far to see Jesus being born in the manger. They brought these gifts that were very expensive, even though they don't necessarily have the means to provide that expensive gift. So they sacrificed as well. So the allusion is that reference to their story. Okay, so this is an example of allusion because the Magi and the babe, we can put Jesus, are referenced in the Bible. Okay, if you did not read your footnotes or you did not finish the end of that story, that one would have been very difficult. And again, I told you, allusion is new to us. We're still working with that. So we're going to continue to work with that, and hopefully we'll just get better. Okay, we're going to keep practicing. Number 10, the text says, within 40 minutes, her head was covered with tiny, close-lying curls that made her look wonderfully like a truant schoolboy. So again, remember, this happens after Della cuts her hair. She goes home and she tries to make her hair look presentable so Jim will see her and still think she's attractive. The italicized font we need to pay attention to says curls that made her look wonderfully like a truant schoolboy. So they're comparing Della to what a schoolboy with messy short hair would look like. And because they use like in their comparison, this is a simile. So again, our justification here is something along the lines of, this is a simile because the author is comparing Della's hair to a schoolboy's haircut, using like in his comparison. Okay. Again, get that down, fix your paper. Go ahead and pause this if you need to. And then let's move on to number 11. We have 2 more. So our text for 11 says, isn't it a dandy, Jim? I had to hunt all over town to find it. You'll have to look at the time 100 times a day now. And if we look, our italicized part says, you'll have to look at the time 100 times a day now. Okay. Is it possible to look at your watch 100 times a day? Maybe, but we know that's just an expression that people use to say that they're doing something a lot, right? So that is an exaggeration because he's most likely not looking at his watch 100 times a day. So any extreme exaggeration is a hyperbole. okay? And the justification for that is the same thing we just said. This is a hyperbole because Jim won't actually look at his watch 100 times a day. That is an exaggeration. Okay. Again, pause, get that down. And then our last text example. Our text 12 says, maybe the hairs of my head were numbered, she went on with sudden, serious sweetness. And again, your italicized words are sudden, serious sweetness. So we know that that sound being repeated is considered alliteration. And we can just say that in our justification, right? The alliteration one should start to be getting really noticeable to you, right? The should tip off that little note in your brain that says, oh, wait, I know this. It's the repetition of a consonant sound. So this is an example of alliteration because the initial S sound is being repeated. And they usually use alliteration for effect. So she wanted, the author wanted our reader to know that she was very serious when she was talking to Jim. She was very intent on trying to make him forgive her for cutting cutting her hair for him. Okay, so the S sound being repeated. Sudden, serious, sweetness. Okay, so if any of these are still confusing to you or you want to just chat about something to make sure you're on the right track, make sure you reach out to me. You will have a quiz on these terms the next time I see you. So be sure that you're comfortable with reading a piece of text and be able to say, this is one of those 5 terms, okay? Email me or comment on Google Classroom and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you. Have a great day.